All right, ready to get started? Yes, maybe. All right, so welcome to Entrepreneur Encounter. We've got a great speaker today, Leah Messina. She's one of our advisors. She's also CEO of Sinuate Media. She's a digital promotions and marketing expert. She's worked with some really big companies. GEICO, History Channel, Black Record, American Express, and then also has experience with startups. So it should be a really great talk. Again, these are sponsored by Frank Seidel, with Seidel Technologies. He's an MSU alum that believes entrepreneurs are the lifeblood of our country, and so he's hoping to inspire you all to be entrepreneurs. So with that, welcome, Leah.
Okay. All right, now? Yes, all right. Okay, so hi. My name is Okay, can you hear? Okay. Maybe. Mm-hmm. Or no? Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. Maybe. All right, good. All right, technical difficulties aside. Hi everyone, my name is Leah Messina. I'm the CEO and founder of Sinuate Media, a digital marketing firm I founded when I was 24 years old in the second bedroom of my apartment, the semester I moved from New York City to Baltimore to start business school. Right off the bat, I don't recommend starting business the same semester you start business school. It's a little much. But Sinuate Media will be entering its 11th year in business in this January. And we provide strategic work such as marketing, research, and plans, helping businesses raise their brand awareness through websites, social media, email, digital advertising. And also we do the tactical work. So businesses that want to do digital marketing, we come in and help them do it for them. But though I've had Sinuate Media for 11 years now, the path to entrepreneurship has been quite a long one in the making. And I want to share that story with you today about how I got to this point and a couple of the lessons that I've learned along the way. I can stand here and tell you some generic statements like, don't be afraid to fail, or an overnight success is often a decade in the making, but I'm hoping that the lessons that I have today are from a more realistic point of view. And I actually have a lot more failures and successes, but with each of those, at the end of the day, I walked away with deeper connections through my network of people that I've worked with and valuable lessons. So let me start kind of way back. My childhood house. So I grew up in New York, and like a lot of businesses, they're started in the garage. So you probably know a couple of them: Disney, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Harley, HP, Mattel. And while I got my start not inside the garage, but on the garage. I was about 12 years old, and I always knew I wanted to have my own business. My dad has had his own business, my grandfather, my great-grandfather. So it's always something that I grew up around, and that's what I knew. So I recruited my best childhood friend from next door, and we started a business called Odd Jobs. And we wrote up these flyers, went around the neighborhood, tried to get all the neighbors to hire us to rake their lawn, or walk their dog, or paint anything our 12-year-old arms could actually reach. And our first and only client was my dad, who both, I think, was eager to support our entrepreneur efforts, but also a little reluctant to let us actually touch anything. So for a whole week, every day, he said, I need the garage sanded. So I said, okay, well, we can sand the garage. So we go out there every single day for a week. It was during the summer. And we're like, we don't know what we're doing. So we're just standing in this one little patch in the garage. And the next Saturday he comes out and he wants to see our work, and he saw that we like made no progress. And so that was the first and only time I actually got fired. So probably my first lesson in business is you should know what you're selling. But you know, I kind of still had that in mind, that I wasn't going to let that get me down. Went through high school and was about to enter college, and I was going to be leaving New York and going to Pittsburgh for school, but I knew that I wanted to have internships in the summer so that I can get experience in work. And to fast forward to the summer before I was about to leave for college, and I show up in front of this building, so 1220 Avenue of the Americas in Manhattan. I'm ready to start my internship. I'm eager, ready to go. And before this process, I kind of had come up with this philosophy that I had 4 chances to get internships every summer before I graduated, so that I can find out what it is I wanted to do when I left school. So I wanted to have a different internship, a different industry, different job every time. So I show up at this building, and I'm ready to start my internship at Winter Media, the publisher of the Rolling Stone, Men's Journal, Us Magazine. And all 3 magazines are based in the same office. So I walk in, I see this wall of all the archives of all the Rolling Stones for all the years. They even have a media library there of music history and all the publications they have. It's a pretty inspiring place to be. And I was going to be an advertising intern for Us Magazine. So I'm all pumped up, it's really exciting, I'm ready to go. And the reality is that I spent most of my summer inside a closet. And my job as an advertising intern was put together the media kits that the advertising salespeople would then mail out to potential advertisers, so people that had products, fashion, beauty products, and that sort of thing. So I had to sit in the closet and assemble all these kits every single day. My other job was I managed this database, that it was the VIP list of everybody who was to get a free copy of Us Magazine. And yes, the White House does get a copy of Us Magazine, so they need to know what their celebrity gossip is too. But it was an important experience, and I wanted to do a good job because I wanted a good letter of recommendation when I left. So, show up at college, walking through campus. In my mind, I had my mom saying, "Go and join a club, Leah, go meet some friends." Walking past, and there's a table sitting in front of this building. This is sort of the center of Carnegie Mellon University. And at the table are these 3 guys, Lynn, Mike, and Ivan. And they have a notepad. They're trying to get people to sign up for this thing called Kiwi Box. And I talked to them, like, tell me about what this thing is. And they said that it is an online teen magazine, for teens by teens. I thought it was a club at school, swear to God, I signed up. Turns out that they had recently graduated Carnegie Mellon, and they needed people with advertising experience and creating content to join their team. So, lucky me, just came off the advertising internship, and I started my freshman year of college with a job pretty quickly. So I show up, they said, come by, meet the rest of the team, and I show up at this house right across the street from campus, Worldwide Kiwi Box headquarters, and they had a bunch of roommates, and slowly began to take over the house. We started down in the living room, then we took over a bedroom, then the second bedroom, so the roommates weren't too thrilled with it, but it was a pretty exciting place to be. And in a matter of probably about 2 days, they went from student volunteer to promotions director and music editor. So that's my second lesson in business, that if you start your own, titles can get pretty creative pretty quickly. But it was my job to, I'll step back 1 second and say, this environment, it was the first time where there was a group of people saying, we want to accomplish something. We want to make this website huge. We want to get all the teams that we can to sign up for this. And it was an anything is possible type of environment. And we had really ambitious goals for growth of the member base. And everybody had their job. Ivan did IT, Lynn was the CEO, Mike did a lot of the advertising work as well. And my job was to help make the website sticky. And to do that through content and through interactive games. And in part of that, I also had to broker these promotion deals with record labels. So I would go up into the bedroom, I would call Britney Spears' manager, remember 1999, 2000, so don't judge. So call Britney Spears' manager, and I would be on the phone interviewing Justin Timberlake when he was with NSYNC, And we would be on these conference calls with all these other music reporters, and I'm this 18-year-old kid on the line. They can't see me, they don't know what I look like, but there's reporters from Billboard magazine, Rolling Stone magazine, and we're interviewing Justin Timberlake. And I was like, huh, if they only knew, like I just came out of English class. But that's what it was. And it was, I worked with them for the next 4 years, but it was pretty exciting. I would call up any record label, a concert was coming to Pittsburgh, I'd ask them for passes, I'd go interview the bands. They would send us CDs still at that time, of music that was coming out, and we would be interviewing and writing articles, and it was really exciting. So not the traditional freshman year I was expecting to have. But what happened next was this. The website really started to get traction. I started with them in August, freshman year. By March, they had money was coming in. They flew everybody to Florida for spring break. It was just kind of really taking off. And they had a decision to make, the three owners. And they decided that because most of the record labels we worked with were in New York and the others were in LA, that they wanted to relocate the business to New York. So I go back home that summer to my dad, and they had asked everybody in the company to come move with them, which would mean having to leave college. And so I go back home to my dad and say, I really want to do this. And he said, you're really not. So at that point I said, okay, well, either I can stay and continue working remotely for them, or I could see what happens. About half the people left school and continued to work for them, and the other half of us stayed in Pittsburgh and continued our degree and finished up. KiwiBox, they got an offer to get bought out for about $20 million from, I think at that time it was Netscape or GEICO, one of those companies that they did not take. And that's when they decided to move the business to New York. They did end up selling the business to a company. Today it's a publicly traded on the over-the-counter bulletin board market, and it's owned by a German company. So if you go to Germany, it's basically today the TMZ of Germany. But we grew the business to 1.5 million users within about 2 years. And it was, I continued on with them throughout college after that, until I went out to the real world. And then that was, you can tell how early that was. So. Okay, but throughout that, I had all that startup type experience I loved, but I still felt I needed to get some corporate experience. So the next summer, after my freshman year, I showed up at this building in Manhattan, the headquarters of McCann Erickson, which is one of the huge advertising agency. If you have watched Mad Men, they're the agency that bought out Sterling Cooper at the end of the series. And where they came up with Can You Hear Me Now? So they had a whole floor dedicated to Verizon. My job that summer was to take awards back and forth from the creative department to the video department so that they can get filmed for commercials. So I spent a lot of time just carrying things back and forth to the departments. And it was a great experience to work with some of the most creative people in the field, with some of the biggest brands in the world. And I still was kind of missing that entrepreneurial side. But I still wanted to get that corporate experience, so I knew that I would have a lot to learn there and I would make really important connections. The next summer, between junior and senior year, I ended up here. And actually I had posted my resume to monster.com, and it's probably the only time that I would say something like that would work. Is that they saw my resume there and they called me and asked me to come in for an interview, where I spent the summer with this guy, Kenneth Cole. Drove his Razor scooter around the office every day, into the elevator, down the hallways. I spent most of my summer doing this. I was working for the media buying department, so I was on the other side of the sales at this point. People were constantly courting Kenneth Cole to come advertise in their magazine. And the two guys that I worked with there were fantastic mentors, and they brought me along to all of these lunches and to meet with people like Sports Illustrated and W and Vogue, Redbook, Time Out magazine, to hear them pitch why Kenneth Cole should buy advertising in their publication. So we spent a lot of time out with them and getting sold on those. I also spent a lot of time in this closet, which was the sample closet. And so the perk of working with them, we got a chance to get free clothes and bags and shoes. So that's the perk of the corporate side. But Kenneth Cole, if you're familiar with their advertising at all, they like to use puns in their advertising. So about free shipping, some are afraid, very afraid about their bags, and everyone to be well read. That's Kenneth Cole's thing. Kenneth Cole writes a lot of his own ads too. But they tasked the interns, they said, we're about to move into London for the first time. Can you help us come up with a campaign? And so all the interns were tasked with coming up with a slogan, and I was very excited because I used mine. So Big Ben meets Big Ken, about time. So that was my highlight of the entire summer. I went back to college. I'm about to graduate school. I have one semester left, senior year, and I come upon another startup from Carnegie Mellon, some alumni that had just graduated. And this one was a company that wrote college guidebooks. College Prowler, today the company is called Niche, and my job here was to write and edit these college guidebooks. So did that my last semester as I was preparing to leave the real world. So if anybody ever needs to know what University of Wisconsin was like in 2003, it's still available on Amazon. But it was amazing to see both how KiwiBox and how College Prowler have grown their businesses over the years and how they've evolved and the new businesses that have spun off of those. The team that started this, a couple moved off and started a company called Branding Brand, which is one of the biggest mobile app producers for e-commerce. And College Prowler became Niche, and they have expanded into all sorts of college, high school ranking type publications. So by the time that I was ready to leave college, it was December 2002, and I said, before I head out to this real world and I work for the rest of my life, I need to leave. And I got my backpack and I went to Europe, and I traveled around Europe for the summer. And I used that time to kind of really think about where I wanted to take my next step. And think about what I wanted to do. It also didn't hurt that at that time the job market was horrendous and it was very hard to get a job, so I used some extra time and traveled around. I returned back to New York, started applying for jobs. I worked at a temp agency for a little while at an advertising firm, but really was having trouble trying to find the kind of job that I really wanted to do. And I reached back out. I remember I had a contact from when I was working at KiwiBox with a girl that worked at this company called Electric Artists. It was a digital marketing agency in New York. And I emailed her and I said, do you guys happen to have any full-time jobs? I'm looking, and I really enjoyed working with you. She emailed me back pretty quick and said, I'll see if I can set up an interview for you. And I went in for the interview on Friday morning. They called me Friday afternoon and offered me the job and asked if I could start Monday. So all of a sudden, there I was showing up at this building right off of Times Square, where I worked as an account executive on such projects as Dog the Bounty Hunter and Growing Up Gotti, Transformers video games, or Gangnam Style magazine, American Music Awards. And my job was to find out how to get the word out about these entertainment products to the internet. And at this time, this is when websites still had webmasters. They didn't even call them like editors or anything like that. So we would reach out to the webmaster and ask them could they write about the magazine, or could they, if we send them a copy of the video game before it comes out, could they write a review? So I would sit there and I'd email all these guys that had Transformer websites and ask them if they were interested in trying them out. And we would send out advanced copies of all of the products that we had. And it was really fun and exciting, and we then parlayed that into doing some consulting with companies like American Express. So this is around the time when blogs were just appearing, and marketers were trying to figure out, is there a marketing application of something called a weblog, and what's a podcast, and how do we use a podcast? And so we consulted with American Express on how could they take these new types of technologies and apply them to things like American Express Travel or American Express Rewards, and incorporate that into their business. So I spent about a year on that project, and really got to see how do you work bringing new technology marketing applications to market. But one of the projects that we worked on, Svedka Vodka, is pretty proud of, because at that time, 2005, it was a brand new vodka that they're entering in the United States. And my job was to coordinate with that guy in the polo shirt, Mark the Cobra Snake, and have him take pictures of people drinking Svedka vodka out in nightclubs in cities, LA and New York. And so today, Svedka is the largest imported vodka brand in the United States. So while we certainly can't claim full responsibility for that, I'd like to think we had a little part of it. But then I decided at that point that I was ready to kind of move on. Again, I was missing out on that entrepreneur side of things. So I packed my bags and I got on the road and headed to Maryland, where I went to business school at night. And I had negotiated with the electric artists if I could still work with them on one condition, they said. So I spent my time going between Baltimore, DC, and Columbia, Maryland, between their 3 campuses to fill up my course load. But the deal was that I could keep my job if I continued to come back to New York every other week. So I spent a lot of time driving between DC and taking the train up to New York to do that. And I did that for a couple of months until I just couldn't do it anymore with courses. And during that time, I really began to formulate what it is I want to do with my own business. Again, I knew I wanted to start a business, but I didn't know what kind. And at the time, there was no digital marketing agencies in Baltimore. Nobody doing marketing the way that I had been doing it in New York, with reaching out to online influencers and that sort of thing. So I decided I was going to start my own business, and that started in the second bedroom of my apartment here. My dog Toro still comes to work with me today, though he can't sit on my lap anymore, he's too old. But started my business, and I had my tax plan. So my tax plan was, I wanted to start the business before my 25th birthday, so I was going to incorporate while I was still working at Electric Artist. I was going to write my business plan, I was going to secure at least one decent-sized client, I was going to give my notice, and I was going to reach out to every single one of my contacts I could think of, and then success. But the reality was, I got my incorporation papers about 30 days before my 25th birthday, so the nick of time. I spent that whole semester writing in the back of my notebooks everything that I thought I could offer in terms of services and what my marketing philosophy was going to be. I did give my notice, but then I kind of had an interesting turn of events where my company then hired me back again and became my first client. So the projects I was working on, they wanted me to continue. One of the projects I had was called bookdivas.com, which was the first book community for girls online, and I was the last person at the company that knew what to do with the website. The other people had moved on. And I did start reaching out to my former coworkers and contacts, which then landed me my second, third, and fourth projects over the next few months. So I ended up getting a project with Virgin Mobile because one of my former coworkers had moved on to a company there. Another one with Twix Candy Bars and Westwood One Radio because a former coworker had moved on to Westwood One. And then I had, always kept in touch with a professor at Carnegie Mellon University, and she gave me a 4-book marketing deal to help them promote that. So within about 4 months, I had a decent roster of clients in the works. So off to a good start. From there, I moved the business next door to the building, and I had office space there. Hired my first 3 employees because business was growing. Then we ended up taking over the space next to that, hired 4 additional employees. We grew out of that space. We moved to this space in downtown Baltimore, and we ended up having the top floor of the building with about, between staff and interns, we had about 12 people on staff. So what had happened, though, in that meantime to allow us to grow was I had one of my contacts, we introduced me to somebody. We had a strategic partnership arrangement where the company was a media buying and selling agency, but didn't do any of the day-to-day marketing, digital work in-house. So we served as basically their department that fulfilled all of the online influencer outreach. And they sold it and they gave us the day-to-day work. So we had that relationship for several years. And was able to grow our client roster to brands like GEICO, DeWalt, Brugal, some Cadbury brands like Dentine and Trident. For GEICO, we did a viral video campaign. For Trident and Dentine, we did something similar. For Sobieski Vodka, we did a sampling. We did several things for them, but we had to work with the liquor store down the street to order probably about 50 cases of the vodka so that we can mail out samples to bloggers throughout the country so they can try it and do recipes and launch the brand. And then one of our biggest clients is Versus, which is a sports television network where we worked on some projects with the NHL, which was, we helped them get their Twitter account set up, along with Black & Decker and DeWalt never had a Facebook page before. We helped them get set up on social media. And then Tour de France was something that we worked on for a few years. And through our digital strategy there, they credit us for being able to double their viewership through the influencer work we did with online media. So those are, it was very fulfilling work that we worked on with these brands. And we were able to grow our own brands. So what I ended up having with Book Divas is that about a year and a half or so after I started Sinuate Media, my former boss called and said, you know, we're not really interested in managing Book Divas anymore. Would you like to buy it from us? And I said, okay, let me think about that. So I bought Book Divas. So I had two parts of the business, the marketing services and then the content publishing side. So we ended up growing Book Divas to about 11 additional websites over the next couple of years that all were female focused and in different niche areas. I ended up selling Book Divas last year to a woman in Wisconsin that now runs it. But now to get to the lesson side of things. So a couple lessons that I've learned along the way. As I've talked about connections a lot, the connections I feel are one of your most valuable assets. Don't take advantage of them because they may have the keys to the door that you want to open. To nurture those relationships, keep in touch with people, drop them a line, ask how they're doing, and don't always have an ask, but also give value to them. Next lesson I would say is do the grunt work and do it well. Put in your time, but more importantly, the people that you surround yourself with are asking you to do that grunt work. They are the ones watching, and they will take notice if you're doing that well, and that work is done to, they'll see that you have a good work ethic. Next lesson I would say is sometimes the other people know what you're capable of before you do. And I felt that when I was at Kenneth Cole, that they felt comfortable enough to have me participate in those meetings with them, and I got the really valuable experience of seeing what it was like to have two people sitting in front of me, being one on the receiving end of being sold and one doing the selling. But as you enter the experience of becoming an entrepreneur, sometimes because you get so focused, it comes with blinders. So you do need to have those people around you that can help take those blinders off and let you know that you can accomplish something that is outside of your purview, what you're trying to get done today, the bigger picture. The next lesson I would say is to leave your comfort zone, to expand your worldview. I find it really helpful for me. I don't see travel as something that is a luxury. I see it as something as a necessity, because to me it breaks my routine. It lets me see how other people solve problems. It helps me see other points of views. So travel, read, converse. I think it helps you to become a better problem solver. Next lesson, I take this one from KiwiBox. Don't be afraid of what makes you unique. It could be your best selling point. Being an 18-year-old kid on the other end of the phone, I was so afraid that they would find that out. But looking back now as an adult, their point of view may have been that KiwiBox had something unique and different to offer, that we were trying to do what we're doing in a different way than had been traditionally done in the music industry. And the music industry really needed that at that point. So if you think it's, it may be your best selling point. This one is a little bit more of an internal one. Know who you are. What your values are, what you want to achieve, what you can and can't live with. Because being an entrepreneur is a bumpy ride. The more you know about yourself before you start the ride, the better. Because you're going to come up to points where you're going to have to question if a decision is going to be worth it or not. And if you know what your values and what you want to achieve, and you have that at least laid out, you may not know all the answers because you're not going to, but if you at least know what your values are, that structure can help you through some of those tough decisions. And prepare for extremes. Again, it's a very up and down situation, especially in the early times of starting a business. So prepare your savings, prepare your significant others, your friends, your family, your mind, your team as you start to grow it, that you're going to have ups and downs. There's going to be an emotional toll on you. and to those around you. So the more you can prepare ahead of time for that, the easier those bumps are when you hit them. Next one, not every opportunity is the right opportunity. It's really hard to say no. It's hard to say no, especially when there could be some attractive angle to it. Even harder to say no when there's money involved. But sometimes it is the right decision. You have to either step away. We've had to do this a lot of times with clients, whether it is it's not the right fit, or we can project that we're just not on the same page in terms of what's going to make them happy and what we can deliver, or that even though it's a personality clash between their end and our staff, we've had to walk away from projects, and it's hard because we know that the livelihood of people are in that balance. The next one, lesson 9, protect your time like it's your last dollar. You get pulled in a lot of different directions as a business owner, between your team and between your network around you. So it's hard sometimes to keep focused on the end goal when you're being asked for help on how to do something, or how to, what is your thoughts on where you want a project to go, because an entrepreneur sometimes keeps those ideas in their head and don't always communicate what it is that the bigger picture is. So keeping that focus and saying no to opportunities is essential. This is my favorite one. From 10, the customer is not always right, even if they think they are. To be there to support them, but you have to know where your lines are and when to stand your ground, or you can risk relationships not only with the client, but also with your staff. And this goes even, in a business to consumer situation, not just in my world of services, but just because they're paying doesn't mean that that the answer that they want is correct. However, that does not mean that you shouldn't provide good service, or that you should not make sure that they're well taken care of, which I think is also important, but making sure that you come to a point where you're both understanding of what it is that you're trying to accomplish. Next one, what you don't know can actually help you. So eliminate your limiting beliefs. It's very easy to tell yourself and talk yourself out of doing something, but sometimes, especially in the entrepreneurial world, you just have to do it. You just have to jump into it. You have to get through to the next step. You have to make a decision, and you have to continue the momentum forward. And on that note, there's always more than one way to solve a problem. So be willing to be a problem solver, not get stuck in the mud and get overwhelmed with the decisions, but to make a decision, go on to the next step, because as the business is progressing and growing, you're making decisions hundreds of times a day, whether it's small or large, but you're there to guide the ship, and you have to keep driving it. Lesson 13, expand your team wisely. It's easy to bring someone on. It's not as easy to let them go. And this was a difficult one, especially if you're in a fast growth rate and you need to bring in people because you need work done. But at the same time, those people are a reflection of the brand that you are trying to put out into the world. And if they don't reflect that, then that is harming your company, whether it's the quality of work or how they project themselves to clients. But once they become in that fold, their livelihoods are also intertwined with their business. They have families, they have financial responsibilities. So making sure that those people that you bring on mesh with your company culture, and they have the same values as you in terms of quality of work and how it's delivered is, I think, a very important part of growing a sustainable business. This one, establish a board, a sounding board. This one is, I think, especially as a young business owner, really important. This is the army of people that want you to succeed no matter what happens. They are your advocates, your cheerleaders, your safety net. They are available to listen to you without judgment. These are the people that you can go to and say, I'm not sure what I'm doing. I don't know what my next step is. I don't even know if this business is going to succeed or fail, or if I should be doing something else with my life. And they can listen to you and give you advice with a clear head and tell you what your next step may or may not be. And then to tie it back all together, I threw in one from my dad. So about a year and a half into the business, I sent him my profit and loss statement, and I said, take a look at this, I think you'll be happy. And he sent me back this email, and congratulations on your milestone, etc. And he wrote this, and I found this email last night in my inbox because I knew I saved it. But his advice was, as you go along, the hill gets a little steeper, and the determination will get a little deeper as you now realize that you can win this game. So it's a bumpy road, but it is one of the most exhilarating, exciting experiences I think that you can have. So, thank you. Happy to answer any questions.
What was the most challenging experience you had along the way?
The most challenging experience I had, so we had, I mentioned that strategic partnership we had with the agency in New York that basically overnight, it felt like overnight, brought us from staff of like 3 people to 12. And we were getting these major, exciting projects, and we coasted on that relationship for a couple of years, and then the economy started to crumble, and so the relationship was starting to get strained, and they started to say, we want, here's who you should hire. This is how much you should pay them. And I was like, oh, what's going on here? I'm not really sure why you're telling me who I should hire, how much I should pay them. So the relationship started to get a little complicated, I'd say. And then it got to the point where we had to make a decision. They kept asking us for more information. Can you send us how you calculate your metrics? Can you send us, how you operate your project flow? And it just, the questions kept, so there's a certain level of, this is our biggest client, you have to keep them happy, but at the same time, you're starting to encroach on a situation that's making me very uncomfortable. And it got to the point where I had to look at it and say, we either are going to, totally implode because of what they're asking, because I know what they're trying to do, or I have to step away from this relationship at the cost of several people's jobs. And we did end up ending that relationship. And at that point, and so we did have to let some people go, which was probably the toughest part of my whole 11-year process. But it was either going to happen very painfully and slowly, or it was going to happen a little less painfully and slowly. So tried to pick the worst of the 2 evils in that case.
So you've been involved with marketing, and as the industry's grown, a lot has changed in a lot of ways. What's the coolest new trend you see coming out that you think is really interesting?
Yeah, so that's one thing we always have to kind of keep our eye on what's new, because it's changed so much in all these years. And it's funny, I have a blog post from 2006 about what new marketing trends to expect, and my first one is mobile. And I'm like, and you look at the reports, all these, what to expect in 2017, and it's mobile. So it's changed, but it also hasn't changed. So I think we are moving from a further and further away from a desktop laptop environment. It is truly actually at the point where we are becoming a completely mobile society. It's beyond, what you can do now on your mobile device is almost as powerful as what you can do on a desktop. There's been this past year, there's some trends with marketing automation, with how marketing is. Some people find it creepy, but they'll track where you go online, and then they'll send you certain marketing messages either through email or through advertising, through ads, about where you've been that are customized to your interests. But I think e-commerce has always kind of been very on top of that, and I think they're going to continue to kind of advance in that area where they're trying to predict, predictive marketing, what it is that you'll be interested in buying. And what else is there? We're seeing some more with how your mobile device is tying in with your geographic location. So using technology like RFID and geolocation of your IP and of where your cell phone is, and serving you offers as you're passing by retail locations. So you can be driving through, past Starbucks on Loman, and before you get to the light to turn, you get a text message to your phone or something saying, if you come in right now for the next 10 minutes, you'll get your Frappuccino for half off. So as people are in motion in the world, there's going to continue to be more pulling into that purchasing environment, I think. Mm-hmm.
So what brought you to New Mexico from the East Coast, and how would you say the marketing environment is down here?
Yeah, it's an interesting marketing environment. In Baltimore, there was a very collaborative environment, I would say, amongst the different agencies, where we had these marketing networking groups that we would go to, and people would share their knowledge about new marketing trends and things that were happening, and we would, pass business back and forth to each other. If you were a little bit better with public relations and you're a little bit better with, branding strategy, okay, I'm going to pull you into these projects, and we would work a lot together. And when I moved down to Las Cruces, I really kind of missed that environment of, collaborating with those people and sharing that knowledge base. I think because it is a smaller city, and perhaps that there's not as many opportunities with potential clients, so it's a little bit more, you got to stake your ground, and which was fine, because at that point all my clients were still back on the East Coast, so I really didn't care. I just wanted the interactivity with the other agencies that were here, and some of them were very open, and we would talk and discuss things. Some were not so open, but I started a group called Networks Las Cruces that would get together once or twice a month, and we would have different sessions, and we would have different people speak. So I would do, like, I'm going to talk today about email marketing, and somebody else would talk about how they do their sales process, and then the next one somebody would talk about how to do really professional photography. And so we did that for about 2 years. The group still exists online on Facebook, and we share different events, marketing related events that are happening. So, but it was very nice to see that that does exist here. There just hadn't been a platform for it. So I think it's nice to see it growing too. When we had the WE conference, the Women Entrepreneur Conference, somebody asked me a similar question. And I've had interns almost since the beginning, since I moved here from the university, and students in the journalism department, students in the marketing department, and I'm so excited for them because they all have gone on to get really great jobs. And I'm just very proud of that. They sought out that experience and have moved on to very competitive marketing positions throughout California, Albuquerque, Wisconsin, Madison, Wisconsin.
So what keeps you going as an entrepreneur? And has there ever been a point where you say, you know what, this is fun, but it's time to hang my...
I think there's probably been about a dozen points where I said this was fun, but it took a while. I think the first point where I was like, I don't know if I want to continue this is when I had that previous experience I just mentioned, because it was so hard to have to downsize the business at that point. And it does get tough, like especially in my field of marketing services, the value of those clients are critical. And if there's a lot of ebb and flow to it, where a client you can be working with, and then they have a budget change, or that a new person comes into the marketing position that directs who all the vendors are, that means that our project our relationships can change in an instant. So there's been certainly a lot of challenges with that of, we lost this client, or it could be, we just got 3 clients and I'm like, what are we gonna do? We have to now staff 3 projects tomorrow. So it's very challenging, but I think for me, the things that I really wanted when I started a business were, I didn't want to have to wear a suit every day, and I wanted to be able to direct my own schedule. I wanted to be able to find opportunities and say, I'm going to do that, and it's up to me to do it. And if I want to go to a conference in London, I'm going to go buy a plane ticket and I'm going to go to a conference in London. Or if I want to take off a day from work to go to my son's school for a play, I'm the boss, so I can do that. but it also, I felt also that I took myself out of that normal career path. There was a ladder that I could have been following, and starting your own business, you remove yourself from that ladder. And you have to be okay with that in some ways, because you can see, as you're going through the ups and downs of having a business, and you can see your peers out of this consistent path, and they're slowly either moving up at their own company, or they have to hop from company to company to rise up in their positions, which is what some people want. It's just not what I wanted. And but it kept me going because I knew that the possibilities that I had owning my own business were so much greater than if I were on that very specific path to a career. That's very motivational for me. Also, if I did decide that I did not want to do this today, that I have the possibility to say, well, what do I want to do next? And I can decide. I can make that decision, and I can start a new business or get involved in another business. I've partnered up with different people throughout the years on starting their businesses, so I still get that startup feel sometimes, and there's been a lot of excitement that comes along with it, so that keeps me going.
How have you been able to get clients since you went to the East Coast? Are they still on the East Coast?
Yeah, it's been interesting. So I'd say now it's about 50-50 between New Mexico and East Coast, between DC, Baltimore, New York, Virginia. So when I started Sinuate Media in Baltimore, the way I got clients is I just showed up at networking events. And I started introducing myself to people, I started telling them what I do. I went on I drank more coffee than I humanly could actually consume just to sit down with somebody and talk to them about what they do. And from there I started getting speaking events, and so I got up in front of, not just one-on-one, but now I'm up in front of 20, or I'm up in front of 100, and that was a really good way to bring clients in. When I moved to Las Cruces, I started, again, I'm like, well, that's the way I know how to get business. So I started with networking locally here with the different chambers, and it took a longer time, I feel, here than it did in Baltimore, but I feel that you do get to a point where you gain trust with people, and then they start to recommend you, and then things start to more actively flow to get clients here. So we have clients in Las Cruces, in Albuquerque, Chuquincari. We work with clients in California, and then everybody else is back on the East Coast. So I still go back and forth to the East Coast probably to see clients for about twice a year and meet with them, so I can see them face to face, which helps keep those relationships going. It's great to have technology to manage day to day, but still seeing them in person is, I feel, important.
Any other questions? Let's give Leah a
Okay,
round of
thank
applause.
you.
All right, thanks a lot, Leah. That was really great. Just some quick announcements. This is the last Entrepreneur Encounters of the semester, but we will be doing them again in the spring. And if anybody wants to start a business, join CEOG. We've got a great program to help you. And there's some flyers over on the Thanks for coming. Enjoy the pizza.